Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Alumni Chats, a weekly podcast featuring alumni from the Department of Broadcasting and Journalism at Western Illinois University. My name is Buzz Hoon, and I'm the host of the podcast. Today, I'm talking with 2003 graduate Travis Collins, and that can't be possible. 2003.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little old here, Buzz. I mean, of course, it's interesting to me calling you Buzz as well, knowing that you're interim dean. It feels a little weird. But, not Mr. Hoon.
No.
Dr.
And that's the thing that's so great about these podcasts is catching up with you guys. And you all know me as Buzz. So the people throughout the rest of the college want to keep that formality. And I always think everyone just knows me as Buzz. So just call me that. Yeah. So let's get into Travis. Where are you at? What's going on? Let's give everybody a life update.
I am based in Jacksonville, Illinois right now. I didn't expect to end up here, but here I am. I'm trying to figure out where to look. The camera or to you. Jacksonville, Illinois. I have been married for, what is it? We're going on 10 years now. I have a 6-year-old son and 2-year-old identical twin daughters. And I work at Perma-Bound Books, which is a book bindery in Jacksonville, Illinois. Not too many people know about it, but it is a worldwide bookbinding company. So I do marketing and graphic design for them. I'm considered a graphic designer / production manager / jack of all trades. So,
and I of course know that. And you know why I know that?
Because I sent you my pretty much full rundown resume.
That's true too. But I grew up in Jacksonville.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They haven't named a grade school after me yet. I always come back to Jack and look for something. No statues, no.
Well, and I mean, really, I grew up in Rochester, Illinois, which is 6 miles east of Springfield, the capital city.
Yeah.
And so my wife, she's been a teacher now here going on 18 or 19 years. She's the English department chair. She keeps me in check.
Nice.
It's things like when I know that I'm writing well, I'll give her something to proofread. And she's like, that's great. Here's your 15 mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
So she keeps me humble. But she had taught over here for several years, went through a lot with me as far as like traveling for different jobs and whatnot. That's how I knew she was the one. Was she really stuck with me? And so we bought a home over here, and I commuted for quite some years to different jobs. But I found this position at the book bindery. They were just hiring for actually a marketing director, but that is not my title. And they hired me 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And it's 3 blocks from my home, 2 blocks from my child's school.
That is awesome.
It's great. So yeah, I think we're stuck here in Jacksonville for the time being. People are like, wow, I can really see you as a teacher. I would love to do my master's degree at some point and go back to Western and teach.
Nice. There you go.
I'm not becoming any younger, but everything that Western did for me, I really appreciate. And the culture there, it's made me who I am today. And I appreciate it.
Well, that's awesome. Let's talk about your origins. I always like to kind of go back and talk about things that might have impacted you growing up. Because as you said, you're from Rochester, small town. And so I always think that, does a small town have its advantages because it has, opportunities that maybe you wouldn't have in a much larger city? What about Rochester helped define Travis Collins?
I think part of it has to do with size. I also think a lot of it has to do with my parents and my upbringing.
Yep.
My dad is a very intelligent man. I believe he was a national scholar. He ended up going to Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago for architecture. And he tells me the stories that one or several of his professors went to see Einstein when he was on his deathbed, just to gain as much knowledge as they could before he passed. So I've had a lot to live up to, Buzz, is what I'm telling you. But my dad he's always, do what you want, but do it well. Yeah. And I think that's really helped me. And so he has his architecture degree, but he was an engineer with the Department of Transportation. And he approved a lot of the bridge drawings that went through and whatnot. So our family vacations as a child was like going to check out the new bridge that was built. That's so much fun. And then my mom, she was a special ed aide at Rochester Schools District for 28 years. And she got a reward or an award when she retired because she'd just been there so long, even longer than the superintendent. And it takes a special person to do that as well, to figure out what people's limitations are, what their strengths are, where they're having problems, and help them. And so I think my parents really helped me make me who I am today.
That's awesome.
With the small town thing, I mean, we had a creek, 2-3 blocks away from us. My mom used to get upset because I got poison ivy multiple times every year. My brother and I, it was one of those things that we'd get home from school and you're out until the lights come on, the street lights come on, and then you have to be home. And I think in bigger cities that's not always possible. So yeah, I think that Rochester contributed to that quite a bit.
Well, sometime in high school, let's talk about some of the things you're active in, because it's, based upon just my knowledge of you, you must have been involved in music in some way.
I was the music man. I started in, I think, 4th grade. 3rd grade, I wanted a drum set and I didn't get it for Christmas and I snapped. I cried for I don't know how long. And so 4th grade, my dad, of course, being who he is, he's like, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. And he bought me a practice pad and started drum lessons. And I started playing drums and percussion. And that took me through high school. I was in jazz band, everything else. And I actually started my degree. I got my music degree from Lincoln Land Community College, and it says it's in music. And then I was a mid-year transfer student to Western Illinois. And at the time I auditioned with Doc Cheadle, and I had been to pretty much every school in the state to audition for music. And I think what really sold me on Western was I walked into ISU, U of I, all of these other schools, and it was like 8 professors, and they're all judging you on your performance. One of them's a tuba player. Now I'm going in my mind like, look, I know you've got the education, but what does tuba playing have to do with percussion? Yeah. So when I went to Western, it was Doc Cheadle and I. He walked me into the percussion room. He's like, let's see what you got. Oh, what did you prepare for me next? And my parents and I walked across to the Union to get lunch. And he came over and he's like, well, you're in. You want to go get signed up and get your books? And he walked us to the bookstore that day. And that, I'm sure that many other professors at Western do it, like yourself. Yeah. But to me, that was very special, that it wasn't 8 or 9 people judging your performance. It's the one guy in charge that is probably going to be your mentor your time there. And he's saying, you're in. Let's have lunch. Let's go get your books. It seemed very much like a small hometown feel to me. Though almost everyone at Western seemed to be from Chicago or the suburbs rather than myself. Because it's like with the Chicago kids, it was always, oh, you're from Southern Illinois. It was like everything, what is it? What do they say? Everything south of I-80 is considered Southern Illinois. Yeah. And so they're like, you're from Southern Illinois. And I'm like, this is a big state, man. Like, I'm from Central Illinois, Springfield, the capital city. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been to the capital? Well, we'll have to take a trip there. Let's go hang out. So I think that's what sold me on Western. So I came into Western as a music business major, and I wanted to be a music producer. And I played in steel band, percussion ensemble, all of that stuff. Steel band, Western Illinois University has one of the only steel drum bands in the country.
And they're awesome.
Yeah, they tour. They're great. I can't say enough about them. And I had put in, I want to say a year and a half, maybe 2.5 years in the music business program. I had even gone to Anaheim, California for the NAMM show, Nashville, you name it, I was going places. And then I was informed by Dr. McCain at the time, who was the department chair. She was a great professor. It was just that my classes didn't align. They only offered specific classes, specific semesters. And so they told me it was going to take me 3 more years to graduate with a music business degree. I'm a big fella. I'm about 6'6". I go about 275. I cried for 2 days straight. I didn't know what I was going to do. My hopes and dreams were crushed. What do I do? Do I serve pizzas do I deliver pizzas for 3 years? Do I stay in Macomb? And then I was like, you know what? I've been editing audio for years now. I help other students with their projects. Maybe I could edit video. And so I checked out the broadcast communications department, and it was the best decision I've ever made in my life.
We are sometimes we stumble into people like you, and because I remember you came into our program and it seemed like that's all you were taking was broadcasting classes. And now I know why. Yeah.
I mean, and I lived there. That's probably why you always saw me there as well. I know we'll probably talk about people we remember, but like Sam Edsel, he was a very good mentor to me. Probably, no offense to you, but probably my favorite teacher there at Western. And he would come back at 10:30 at night, midnight, just to lock the editing base doors because I lived there. I'm like, I wanted to edit music. Well, now, I lost that opportunity, but what can I do with the video? And so I was figuring out all the machines, how to edit, what's the best way to do it, what's the fastest way to do it. And it's one of those, my dad pushing me again, like, you can do whatever you want, just be good at it, So
you have to explain the process back in that period of time of how you recorded video, how you then transferred it over and had to edit that video.
All right. But I am not, this is not product placement. I have 3 kids and a job and I needed one.
Caffeine up.
Yeah. So back then, I think you guys might have even had Sony machines.
Sony editors. That's right.
Yeah. So you would import the tape. You have a tape and you would run it, and however long, if it was a 3-minute story, you're sitting there for 3 minutes waiting. And then you would make these cuts, and then the machine would rewind back and say from point A to point B, we're cutting that out and we're splicing the two together. And you would hear these machines running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So when you want to layer stuff on top of each other, if you want to do a chroma key, they had like the eyedropper where you got, to get your chroma key as close to it good as you could, excuse me. And you're just layering upon layering upon layering. And then I also discovered, this is something that probably many know, or they're just like, oh, well, it does that with a push of a button now. But if you layered the effects back then, so I'm like, I want this to spin in, and then I want it to have this wipe on it. And we could do that multiple times and get the effect we wanted. We just needed to plan ahead of time. I say we, but really it was me. I'm like, what do I want to do?
Well, people, and what I want people to understand is that we had these editing rooms that you had to sign up for or be there for that entire period of time. And when you talk about being in an editing room till late at night and needing somebody to either lock or unlock something, that's because that's where you didn't have a mobile computer that just you could work on. Well, and
you sent the questionnaire, like, think about funny stories at Western. So I would, Mark Moses, whom you've already interviewed, he's one of my best friends. We've kept in contact. He was a groomsman in my wedding. ended up picking up a girl at my wedding. But Mark and I have been friends for a long time. And I talk to college students now. I've got friends that, like, I don't want to say a late bloomer. I was a late starter as far as my kids' age. You look, I've got a 6-year-old and 2 2-year-olds. And some of my friends from high school, they've got kids that are in college. So when I talk to these college kids, they're all saying, oh, I've got a 9 o'clock class. Man, I'm like, I had one semester the entire time I was at Western that it was not an 8 o'clock class, 8 a.m. Mark Moses and I had our show before that. We were showing up at the radio station at like 6 a.m. So I'd go in at 6 a.m. I still joke with Mark. I'm like, my radio show with you, best job I ever had. They used to have the Starbucks on campus in the Union, and you could use your money card, whatever your meal plan card, to buy coffee. So I spent way too much on coffee, but I would go over and swipe my card, and they knew my order at the time because I was in there 4 times a day. And I'd get my Starbucks coffee, and I'd grab a newspaper on my way into the station, 6 a.m. And I would complain about whatever I didn't like or what was bothering me at the time, or, ask people that were listening, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And it was really the best job I had because there was planning that went to it. Okay, we need to have commercial breaks, and we're going to pick topics. And of course, we can't be vulgar or anything, but what's going on in today's news? Because what's bothering us is probably bothering everyone else. So yeah, I'd get there 6 a.m., get up around 5:30, had 8 o'clock class. I'd go to class until I think I got out around 2, and I do whatever little homework I had to do as far as paperwork. And then I'd eat supper, and about 6 o'clock, I think in the evening, I would come back and I would edit video until midnight. Well, this is where the story really gets funny. So 10:30 midnight, Sam comes back, he locks the door. Well, I'm a broadcast communications major. I've already done my homework. I've had a long day. I'm already edited my stuff. So what do? You go to the bar. I came home at Christmas. My brother had transferred in. Oh,
you're still there.
Okay. I'm not seeing your screen. Oh, that is something. Okay, here we go. All right.
There we go.
So I was getting out of it from editing at about 10:30 at night, sometimes midnight. And then you're a college student, you go to the bar. And my brother had transferred into Western as well. He was a business management major, and he had moved a couple doors down from me, like 2 doors down from me. Well, he was keeping track of every night I was going out to the bar. And so when I came home from school for, I think it was a Christmas break, my parents were like, would you like to talk about AA? Would you? And they didn't understand that it was just like, this is where I go to socialize. Like, this is what broadcasting majors do. We do all of our work. And then what do? You go hang out with your friends that you've already hung out with all day. It's just that you're unwinding. And then it all starts the next morning. So college kids, I guess, going back to it, is, wow, I have a 9 o'clock class. And it's like, you just don't know how things were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
One semester, I didn't have an 8 a.m. class. So
you, of course, Mark is just a terrific influence for, and still remains somebody that is continues to help our program. But another person you had mentioned was Brittany Bauman. And so you must have somehow been involved with the newscast, and Brittany, of course, was doing all types of things.
That's a lot went on with Brittany. Believe it or not, Brittany, I think I was a junior or a senior. Of course, I had switched majors, but she came in as a freshman, and she was having a hard time adjusting. She didn't even know if she wanted to be a broadcast communications major for a while. And I was like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. If this is what you want to do it. Do it and do it well. And we all see that she's become great at what she does.
Awesome.
She was able to land the job that she wanted. She got re-signed. She's able to keep that job. So yeah, that was an interesting story, that. And we've just had a lot of fun times, Brittany and I. Even after I graduated, I remember her texting me or calling me on a Halloween, and she was just like having a bad day, and she wanted me to drive over at to Macomb at midnight on a Halloween. And I'm like, I can't. I have a job. I have things to do. So yeah, Brittany, her and I have just kept in contact on social media. We don't talk nearly as much as Mark and I do, but yeah, she's a good girl, and she's a hard worker, and I'm glad that she stuck with it.
That cast of characters back in that day, and which is still true for in many ways. As you said, I think in some ways it bonds people together, doing some of the group activities, whether it's sports production or news production or working in the radio, doing video production, the hours, the helping that goes on, because everybody's got a little bit of a different skill. It brings back very fond memories of the other students.
That was, so one of the questions you asked me, and it was the last one, so I know you're probably going to ask this to wrap it up, but what advice would you give students? But you just tapped on 2 or 3 points there. And it's, so you've got to really learn. This is the perfect time to learn what you're good at and learn how your mind works, and hanging out with people that do the same thing, you're going to learn what your strengths are. And when I say that, Mike Murray, he was a professor there for years and years. And I think I had him for broadcast history and law. Well, I'm a very hands-on guy. If my resume doesn't already show it, I'm very much on the technical end. And I figured that out at college. Western helped me figure that out. I mean, I knew I wanted to produce music, but as far as cutting music and then cutting video and the things that I could do, I was very much that way. So I would walk into Mike Murray's class, and he taught broadcast history and law at the time, I think. And he would get so frustrated because I'd walk in and I'd take the first seat in the front row, and I'd sit there by him. And every other student in the class has their paper out, and they're taking notes. And he would get frustrated with me. Travis, where's your notebook? Aren't you going to take it out? Are you going to use your pen? And I'm like, Mike, I love you, bud, but I know how my brain works, and it's going to go in. And if it goes out, it's not staying in there. If it's in there, it's like a bear trap. I'm going to remember it. So I just had to sit there and absorb. I really didn't take many notes in his class, because it was just if it sticks, it's going to stick. If not, it's wasted space to me. I need that for other things. And as far as learning how things work and the people you hang out with. So Mark and I had been out drinking at the Pace and probably some other places one Friday or Saturday night. And since I'm such a big dude, I'm not worried about walking around campus by myself at night. So I take Mark back to his dorm, whatever, and we're sitting out in front, and they used to have the $5 Domino's pizzas out of the trunk of the car. I don't know if they still do that or not, but Mark and I are sitting there eating pizza, and you interviewed Mitchell Leach.
Yeah.
So Mitchell walks up, and Mark had met him in some class, underclassmen. Hey, this is Mitchell. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, it was almost like Steve Harvey is what I would compare it to. He's wearing his chains at the time and everything. And he's like, what up, playa? And I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm from Central Illinois, not Chicago at all. What's up? And he hands me his business card. And something about that really stuck. It was Mitchell Leach II. He had a business card on him. And this is college.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm already going all right, I'm the guy behind the scenes. I'm the guy that pushes the buttons. I'm the guy that makes things happen. Mitchell's the guy that's out there shaking hands. He's talking to people. He's wearing a suit. This is what he does. So it was a very strange time for me, because I figured out what I wanted to do, what I was good at, and how to make it work. But I was friends with all of these other people that also, they had their strong suits.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I would call Mitchell and I'd be like, hey man, I've got this skill, and this skill, I need a job, Mitchell would find me a job, because Mitchell's the guy with the business card in college that's handing it to you. That's what type of person he was.
Yeah, it's funny that you had mentioned that, because it's so true that somebody like Mark Moses, who knows how to use his mouth, he's knows how to connect his brain and his mouth together and talk. And Mitchell was, even back then, such a promoter. And Brittany, of course, had all these strengths as an organizer and somebody that, had great judgment about how to deal with stuff. And then here is you, which I want to highlight your career here, Travis, because you started your first job's back in Springfield.
Back in Springfield. Yeah.
And so you get started, but we're going to talk about how over that period of time, you show this great flexibility and adaptability in the business. So talk about your first job and what you were doing in Springfield.
Okay. So I was a mid-year graduate, graduated in December of 2003. And I got my first job at WICS TV in Springfield. That was an NBC affiliate at the time. They're an ABC affiliate now, but it was in the commercial production department. And I was a commercial producer. And I got the job like a month before I graduated. So there towards the end, it was rough because I was doing finals and I was still trying to drive back and forth and work with them. And like, I want my first job. And actually it was Sam Edsel again, that he was like, why would you intern when you can go get a job and it'll pay you a little something? So right. I started looking for a job, and luckily I found one at home. And it really helped my demo tape at the time from Western, because I had done the news opens and I had made them, I had put the hours in to make them look sharp. And when they saw my demo reel, they were like, that newscast bumper looks just as good as what we're airing over there. I was already at that level and I hadn't even realized it, but I had put the hours in. So I start there as a commercial producer. And I'm in that position for 2.5 years. And that's going out, and I was meeting with clients and talking about how they wanted to promote their business. This is after the salesperson had already made the sale, what they wanted to say. So I'm learning how to write scripts there. And then I'm going out and I'm learning how to light and shoot everything every day, sometimes 2 and 3 commercials a day. And then I'm coming back and I'm editing those spots. So I'm also learning how to use their editing equipment, which at the time I think was Avid Adrenaline units. So I'm using an Avid system too. And then may he rest in peace, my first manager was battling cancer at the time as well. So I was pretty much living at the station. There were 3 of us in the department. The other gentleman, Alan, he was in his 60s, I wanted to say. So, when it's time for him to go home, he goes home. But I was keeping up with the same routine I was in college. I was like, I go to work at 8 a.m. and I might have to pull an all-nighter to get these 3 spots edited. But let me go home and sleep for 4 hours and take a shower, and I'll be back to meet with this other client. So I got a lot of experience in those first 2.5 years, meeting with clients, writing scripts, lighting, shooting, editing, the whole bit. In the meantime, my manager, he's taking chemo or whatnot, and we used to have a couch in the editing bay, and sometimes he would just fall asleep on the couch. So that he had a really rough go of it, and he ended up passing from it. So I was so good at lighting and shooting that the news department continued to pull me over to light and shoot their promotional videos, whether it be for the weather team or whatnot. So after 2.5 years as a commercial producer, I moved across the hall and took a promotion, and I was hired as their senior promotions producer. And I stayed with WICS until 2008. Excuse me. So in 2008, Fox, Illinois, that is just 2 blocks down the street from WICS, hires me as a marketing manager for their CW side at the time. Well, I'm there about a year. And of course, that's when the economy tanked and they had to let someone go. And it was the new guy. So it was me. So I then spent, and funny enough, Fox, Illinois was bought up by WICS because they're both owned by Sinclair Broadcast Group. So I should have just stayed where I was at.
Yeah.
But that sent me looking for a job. And that was the worst stint of unemployment I had ever had when the economy tanked. I was out of work for 9 months. But then I was very excited because I caught a big break. I got hired as a senior promotions producer at WBTV in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now that's quite a big jump because Springfield, Illinois is market 80 whatever, and Charlotte, North Carolina at the time was market 24.
Plus it's across the country.
Yeah. So, and I was dating my wife at the time as well. So that was a rough, big move. So I moved down to Charlotte and I'm there about a year. And honestly, the marketing director and I had quite a few talks. I just wasn't happy. I moved down there. I had no family, no friends. I didn't know anyone in Charlotte. My shift was from 2 p.m. until 11 or 11:30 p.m. every night. And then some nights, since I didn't know anyone, I would stay and I continued on the same, like, I'm going to make my stuff better. So there were days, Buzz, where I would go into work at 2 p.m. and I was there the next day watching the sunrise. And then I'll go home for a couple of hours and I'll sleep and get a shower and then I'll be back for my 2 p.m. shift. Well, it got bad enough. I came home for Christmas that year. And my mom, I had lost so much weight. She was like, I don't even recognize you. And I went to the dentist and the dentist was like, you need to wear a mouth guard. You're so stressed. You're grinding your teeth. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was really noticing like the toll that it was taking on my life, putting in these long hours and just not having companionship, whether it be family or friends or whomever. So I ended up,
you need to have that balance, right?
You do. And that's why I'm here where I am today in Jacksonville, Illinois, was you really need to have a work-life balance. And it took until 2 years ago for me to figure out that balance.
So you left a good sized market and you try to get back because you need to have that personal side. And so you went to Paducah, is that right? To Kentucky?
Paducah, Kentucky, which is WPSD TV, and they're another NBC affiliate. WBTV in Charlotte was CBS. So I've worked for just about everybody. They were CBS, and I find work about the same time my wife and I got engaged as well. And you want to talk about long engagements. My wife and I were together 8 years before we were married. So I knew she was the one. She got on a plane for the first time and went to Charlotte, and I knew that's when she was the one. She stuck with me through that. And we were engaged 2 years before we were married. And it was simply with my job stuff that she stuck with me. So I get back to, I'm looking for a job closer to home. And I didn't find one in Illinois. The economy was still rocky. But I find work at WPSD TV in Paducah, an NBC affiliate. And it was honestly one of the best experiences of my life as well. Some of the people there were just so kind. My wife agrees. She would drive down to see me on the weekends and we'd go out with these folks. And she's like, if we didn't have family here in Central Illinois, we'd be down in Paducah. It was just a different culture. In the 80s, they had it was an artist, some sort of artist project where they have, if you go to Paducah, Kentucky, they have Lower Town is what it's called. And it's like the historic district. Mm-hmm. And they brought in these artists in the 80s from all over the world. And that was like their epicenter. And they redid these old buildings. So it's great. And they would have their galleries on the first level. And these artists would live in the second level of these homes. So you're talking about like, they have open street parties every weekend down there. Like whether it's blues and barbecue or whatever you want to go see, barbecue down by the river, that sort of stuff. Because a lot of these people, that's how they make their living, is they're selling their art and they're doing these types of things. And everybody talks about up here like Fun Day Sunday. They don't know Fun Day Sunday until they've been in Kentucky, and like you drag out the bourbon, you know, and it's a Sunday fun day with your friends. So I met a lot of good people there that I'm really good friends with today. Jennifer Horbelt, she was one of the main anchors down there, and she came back. She went out to Colorado, but we used to call her J-Ho. And this was just in the last couple of years. I sent her a message and I was like, hey, can I use you as a reference as a job? And she said, absolutely. You're like a legend around here. She said, the kids don't even know, because I was still putting in long hours, but it was sort of like my WIU family. Like, these are people that I worked with, but I also hung out with afterwards. And it was just a good time. So I stayed 2.5 years in Paducah, Kentucky. And my old job opened back up as a senior promotions producer in Springfield at WICS. So they hired me right up. Now I should tell you, this whole time I've been doing this, like my first 2.5 years were in commercial production, but the rest of the time I was a senior promotions producer. I was getting very, very good at writing news teases. Like, if you want, what should kids work on and what should kids get better at? People would come to me and say, there's breaking news. We need a tease. So-and-so is going to be on set in 10 minutes. And I would write a 30-second tease, 20, 15, 5-second bumpers. And you have to do all of that in 10 minutes. And then that news anchor is going to walk out and cut the script. Like, the script's got to be in the system. So I got very, very good at writing, and it's a very strong skill of mine. I look at websites now and I'm like, well, that's a crap way to advertise that. I mean, this is the way that my brain works now, just because I did it for so long. So I get hired back at WICS. This is 2013? No, 2011. So 2011, I'm hired back at WICS, and I'm there as a senior promotions producer. And I'm there 2 years, I want to say. Anyway, this was one of the other things I wanted to talk to about students, with students and other people thinking about joining the program. My manager at WICS walked in, and after 2 years being back, she said, I talked to corporate and we're going a different direction with our promotions. You can pack your stuff in a box and say goodbye to all your coworkers. And so again, it hurt, and I was laid off, and it was really hard to take. But I guess what I want to tell students is, I don't know what it is now since I'm not working in news, but I worked in news until 2015. And most of the contracts then were only 2 years. So you would see Glenn, and then the next day you wouldn't see Glenn. It was like a revolving door. And it's news directors and companies, corporations that own these stations, they're looking for like cheaper, the new kid right out of college, or they just decided that they wanted to go a different way with their promotions or whatnot. I mean, you see these multimedia journalists and they're there one day on screen and they're not. Don't take that personally. You can't beat yourself up over it, because there were many years that I was hard on myself and I'm like, why did that happen? And you just can't. I mean, it'll eat you up inside. You can't take it personally. You've got to realize that some of those contracts are only 2 years. Sometimes they just decide they want to redesign the set, and they want to spend more money on the set design than they do on their employees. I mean, that's just
a
the way
reality.
it is. And I know, like Denise Hanika, is it? She was in the program after I graduated, but her and I have talked and whatnot. And, you know, she found a station that appreciates her and appreciates her work, and she's stayed there and she's been happy, and that's great. But I just want to let your students know that if you go to a station and you're there a couple of years and some higher power just decides they want to go a different direction, don't beat yourself up over it, because I mean, I know a lot of successful people that have been laid off and let go. One of them, Glenn Marshall, was the same way. You don't know Glenn. Glenn didn't go to Western, I don't believe, but he's a Chicago boy, and he was at WICS about the same time I was, and they let him go. And so he went down to Atlanta for a couple of years. I believe he was there for 2.5 years, and he was doing freelance multimedia journalism. Different stations would call him up. He had his own equipment, go up, out, or, okay, you send a cameraman and I'll write the story. And he did that for 2.5 years, I think, freelancing. And now he's on WGN. His hometown called him back, and they're like, your work's good enough, so he's as happy as a clam. But I know it was hard for him for a couple of years too, because he was beating himself up like, what did I do wrong? When really, they just don't want to re-sign your contract for one reason or another.
Well, that's what I love about your story, Travis, is that you rebound right back from every instance of whether it's a different job or a different location. You continue to grow, because one of the next stops, which I want to talk about, is you work for the treasurer's office.
Yeah, there was a short stint in between there. Actually, it was a year or year and a half. Might have been even 2 years. I'd have to look. So it was like 2013 was when I was let go at WICS, but I was hired within the week for PBS here. WSEC, WQEC, WMEC, if you've seen them, over in Macomb.
Yeah.
And they hired me at the time. They saw all of my skills, and I rebranded the station. And it wasn't just like PBS graphics are coming down from corporate, we want to use those. They have multiple channels on their towers. So they have like PBS, they have Create, and then they had one other one. They had 3 different stations running it all the time. 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, analog stations. And so I designed over 480 motion graphics for them to rebrand them. Funny enough, it was purple and gold. I don't know. It looks like they were bought up by Southern Illinois University.
They were. Mm-hmm.
And I believe they still use some of those lower thirds. If you look, and it says tonight at 10.
Yeah.
Well, I did all of those motion graphics. If they're purple and gold and they're moving, that's all my work. So I did that and rebranded the look, did bumpers, all of the graphic stuff for that. And then I noticed that the CEO at the time wanted me to become a salesman. And I am not a salesman. He wanted me to go out and look for people to donate to PBS and whatnot. And that's fine. But I mean, at this point, I've learned what my skills are and what I'm good at, and I'm not a salesman. So I started looking for other work, and the Illinois State Treasurer's Office saw all of my skills, and I ended up getting hired there in 2015 as his digital director. And what that is, I should rewind a little bit. So like since 2008, I would say, along with news, I continued to learn more about graphics. Even when I wasn't a commercial producer and producing it myself, I would turn around and it's like, well, it's 2 a.m. Our graphic designer's gone home. What do I do? So I've got, my dad called them more bullets in your belt. You're going to war. That's great. You're getting more bullets in your belt. So this is where I've continued to learn. This is another skill that I've learned. So the treasurer's office sees what I can do with graphics, motion graphics, video, all the different skills I have. And they hire me as their digital director. And what I do there is I created the treasurer's social media accounts. And I worked with a marketing firm in Chicago. I believe they're the Weinstein organization. They go by 2. And they were rebuilding his website, which is a lot because when you're talking about the state and financial documents, there's a lot that goes into it. And pretty much I got them the assets that they needed, whether it was photography, video, graphics, that sort of thing. I helped them rebuild their website, and I managed the treasurer's social media accounts, shot video and photos for the office. And this was a lot of traveling, if you can imagine, doing all of this in a year. And I think it might have been October. The deputy treasurer called me into his office, and he just said, "Hey, I want 10,000 Facebook followers by the end of November." So like a month. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, there's no paid advertisement. Like, I have managed to build his following to over 3,600 people without any kind of financial backing. So they were like, well, the graphic designer left the office. She left in September and I'd picked up her duties. How would you like to do a lateral move where you're traveling less? You don't have to manage the social media accounts all of the time, and you get to do more of the office's graphic design and stuff like that, but you still take photos. And I said, sure. So I became the treasurer's media specialist. And I did that for 3.5 years. And that included, with the graphic design end, like doing reports, yearly reports, still doing photography, still doing video, pretty much everything I was doing, other than I wasn't managing the social media accounts 24/7. And I got to spend more time at home. I wasn't doing as much traveling.
And that's what's wonderful, as I said about your story, Travis, is you become like an ultimate Swiss Army knife, whether it's, if every instance somebody sees what you can contribute. And I think you even mentioned in your communication with me, you said you have an understanding that sometimes people aren't going to come to your rescue. You have to be the person to solve the problem.
It is very much that, like, graphic designer, when you turn around and they're not there at 2 a.m. The best helping hand you have is yourself. And you're going to meet people at Western, those that are attending, that have a different set of skills, and you can learn from them and be friends with them. But also, when it comes to doing the work and getting hired, that's on you. What do you want to do? Well, ask yourself, what do you want to do? What strengths do you have? And I almost wanted to put on that questionnaire when you said, what advice do you have for students? It was like, take a camping trip during the summer, and to only take one other person, or go by yourself, and don't bring a bunch of beer. Just go out into the woods for the weekend and think about, what do I want to do? What are my strong suits? What are my abilities? And then work hard on those strengths, and you'll always be employed. I mean, I was laid off 9 months when the economy tanked in 2008, which nobody had seen anything like 2008. But every other position I've had, if I've been laid off or if I just decide to leave, I've had work within the week. I met with friends from high school that I hadn't seen in 20 years this past summer. And one of them, he's got his master's or his doctorate in English. And he's like, I was adjuncting over here and doing this, and now I'm doing some editing. Adjuncting doesn't pay as well as you thought, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm going through him with my skills and what I've learned just as a broadcast communications major. And I'm like, I've only got my bachelor's. I'd love to do, further my education. But I told him, I'm like, I don't think I ever have to worry about work. If it's not doing graphic design, then it's like, okay, I can go back to shooting video. And if it's not shooting video, then, hey, a still photo is the same. The camera works the same way as a video camera. Start shooting photos, You've got to figure out what your strong suit is and get as good as you can at it, and you'll never have to worry about work again.
Absolutely.
It might always, it might not pay what you think it should, or you're making less than you were and you might have to struggle for a bit, but it's a safety net for me to know that, like, well, I've got these 10 skills. If this doesn't work out, I've trained myself that I can apply for all of these other jobs.
Yeah.
And
plus you're a creator. I mean, that's what you are essentially, Travis. You are a creator.
Yeah. Which I hope to do more of. I told you we bought a 1930s Victorian home, this one, here, and I've been renovating our bathroom. Half of it's laid in tile, something that I've never done before, but it's another skill or trade that I've learned. But the next step, which we didn't get to, I wanted to rebuild my website. I haven't touched it since 2018. But I want to start in the future. This is for myself. I kind of feel like I know what needs to be done to brand something or to market something. I see all of these people with Etsy shops and everything else. It's time for Travis to brand Travis. That's right. And to brand his skills. So mightyimagine.com, mightyimagination.com is my website. And I plan on rebranding myself in the next year, and maybe I'll release some art or whatever I want to do, because it's my website and I've got all these skills. And hey, if other people can make money with these skills, why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
It's
So here's I think and I appreciate all the time we've had to talk about things here, Travis. One of my last questions, which I think is going to connect back with your family. You've got your kids. What do you think you will tell them that is something that is just what you're really proud of, an achievement, something that's career related, that you can say, hey, Dad did help do this?
Well, I think I'll have a lot of cool stories for them. Working in news, I mentioned I got to party with Jim Belushi. He was at a Christmas party I was at for NBC, I think it was, or ABC. It was All About Jim or something. He had a show on. Jim Belushi showed up, so I got to hang out with Jim Belushi, and a lot of other cool people. When the LPGA would come through Central Illinois every year, I was one of 2 photographers that they sent. And that's because I have a challenge for your students, Buzz.
Okay.
Everybody thinks they're good at shooting sports, but to follow a golf ball and to not just pull out, but to follow it from the tee to the hole is a skill.
Yeah.
And I want to see them do it. So the guy that they sent out with me, 2 people in Central Illinois, they would send out to shoot the LPGA. The guy that taught me how to follow a golf ball was the other guy that they sent out, and they would call us every year. And so that was a big deal. That it was kind of like an honor, like, okay, you've got all of these other photographers that you could be calling. Me, because it was the practice that I did it. So I would say, have your students go out, and if they're out with friends, go hit a couple golf balls. Take a camera out, see if one of your classmates can actually follow the golf ball from the tee to the hole. So that was a big thing. And
Travis, it gets back to what we started with your dad instilling a value in you to say, if you're going to do something, do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that over the almost 20 years of your career, you've been adapting, but you've also been trying to do it right.
Yeah. I also, one last thing that I think is cool to tell my kids, and hopefully I can tell my grandkids, is when I was in the treasurer's office, they minted the bicentennial coin for Illinois, and I contributed to. They had a competition to design one side of it. And come to find out that the graphics were just taken off of the internet by the kid. He didn't know any better, junior high or high school or whatever. So we had to recreate that side of the coin, and then the side with the state treasurer's office seal and all of that. I prepared it for mint. So I ordered 2 or 3 of these coins, and it's sort of like, I can tell my grandkids that I contributed to creating a part of Illinois history. And that was a big deal to me.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Travis, I appreciate your time, bud. And it's been so, fun catching up with you.
You too, Buzz. Tell everybody hi for me. Kevin Nichols over there in the percussion department or in the music department. Yeah, him and I are still good friends. He was one of the first ones I was beating myself up about switching majors. And he's like, everybody's got to do what they've got to do. And there's no hard feelings, So he comes over, he'll play with his band every once in a while, and I'll go out and have drinks with him. And everybody's got to find their place in life, I guess is what I'm saying. Life never happens how you intend it. So don't beat up yourself. Just work hard and do the best you can, and everything will work out.
Travis, thanks again for being on the podcast.
All right. Thank you, Buzz. Have a good day.
And thanks to all of our weekly viewers out there. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast or want to recommend someone, just send me an email. We want to hear from our alums, and we hope you will continue to watch and listen to the podcast, and really appreciate everyone's support. So until next week, stay safe, take care, and God bless.